You are listening to part 1 of episode 31 of the Psychotherapist Podcast. In this episode, I go over with my psychotherapist my newfound obsession with gay Vikings. I showcase some art that I drew, just a rough sketch inspired by, the Soviet gulags, uplifting pretty stuff. And Sir Bobber talks about his days as an urban pioneer in the dark, forbidden lands of 70s Dorchester. I would like to just apologize for the audio just for this episode. If this is your first time listening, please don't think it's all gonna sound like this all the time. This is just the one time. I used a built-in mic on my laptop, which does not sound as great, but we still have phenomenal content, and I would not post if I thought otherwise. So thank you for listening, God bless, and enjoy the Psychotherapist Podcast. I can just start and edit whenever, and it'll be after that fucking cough.
Okay.
So how are you doing today?
Morning.
Good morning. It's
doing
Saturday.
Okay. Yep. Which is, for me, I'm doing a military on-call this weekend because I mended my fences with them and we got over the hurdle, and so I agreed to do one weekend a month. So this is it. This is the month. So as of 2 o'clock today, I'll be on call till roughly 8 Sunday night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So do you have to have some system up where if someone needs you at like 3 a.m., you have something to like wake you up? Or do you just never sleep? You are the night.
I sleep very lightly, so I'm tuned into the certain sounds, a certain sound for the emergency alert. So. Gotcha.
So that's the main job at the military stuff, is just being on call for veterans and such?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing the crisis calls, basically.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Those are the easiest for me. I'd rather do that than some of the other stuff.
Like what's...
So no long-range projects.
Gotcha.
Like the artificial intelligence, which demanded about 65 hours of additional training. I found it very, very difficult because I don't have a computer background. There was a lot of computer stuff.
Yeah. So do you have anything you want to put on the agenda besides gay Vikings?
Yeah. Well,
I loved your response. It just made it sound...
I knew you would get a kick out of it, Things like, yeah, they're sitting around thinking about gay Vikings, okay.
Like I'm just sitting on a park bench just pondering life, and then I'm like, right. The gays, the Vikings, I need to find this out.
I mean, that would be perfect for a sitcom. The psychiatrist and analyst has a person on the couch, and they're free associating, and it's kind of moving right along, and then out of the blue, the person says something so off the wall.
I think I was a gay Viking in a past life.
Right. The therapist goes, what? Want to say, excuse me, you say that again? Make sure I understood that.
My new name is Jelfendor.
Yeah. I do want to hear that. I just had one issue, and that was that I enjoyed your drawing. I'm thinking, okay, he's using his right brain. What I'm thinking, does that mean he's not using his left brain to keep us focused on the LSATs as he should? And I probably sound like your mother or a superego or something like that, or the angel on your shoulder. But it's a real question. I mean, you're tapping into your right brain, so your focus is shifted.
Right. So I would say that's a totally fair and reasonable question. And Good. For me, it's like, it's really nothing I'm in any rush to get done whatsoever. As
what,
with
the drawing or the LSATs?
Oh, fuck the LSATs. I'll just wing it. No, the drawing, I really, none of my drawings I've ever, I feel like the need, like, oh, I'd love to complete this, but there's never like a sense of I need to complete this now, So that sketch I sent you was like 5 minutes. And the way I see it, when I take any kind of breaks for to decompress or relax, I think it's a more fulfilling way to spend that relaxation time than video games, personally.
I agree. That's extremely important. It's a great point, and that is a good way to break. A good stress reducer. Some people would play a little music. Some people would, do something else. Some people would draw, would paint. You have artistic ability in drawing or creativity, so you take a break. For you, it's a break. It's not a stressor. You're not agonizing over it and wondering what you do next or what lines you draw next or anything like that.
I mean,
it's a break.
Yeah, and I'm sure on like a late, if I was, I had all the time in the world and was just getting high all day, I would probably get lost in it because, I mean, I try to apply realistic standards because I know I'm a pretty mediocre drawer, but I think I'm better at coming up with like conceptual, interesting ideas than necessarily the technical, well execution of the drawings, but.
Right.
That just takes time, honestly, and practice.
But you brought up an excellent point, and it's exactly where I was going with it, is getting lost in it. The danger is getting lost in it.
And with something like that kind of art piece, I mean, when the inspiration is the Gulag Archipelago, you have you have too much to work with. You know what I mean? Like, there will never be. I just try to, go for some broad stroke like imagery of, stuff that just really stood out to me. Like, for example, there's always this emphasis on any cell or, whatever, wherever there's window, air, sunlight, all the thugs, the Blatney, the thieves, they hold that shit hostage and you can all fucking suffer under the bunks, whatever. If they're on like an open car, like sometimes they've been transported on like just a flat open car anyone could fall off of. So the thieves just get in the middle and force everyone around them, like, so them like, and there's something where Solzhenitsyn, I think, describes, I think he may have been referring to like his first real up close encounter with them, but he just says something about those fucking snouts. These snouts. Yes, and it could be a linguistic translation thing, but either way, I just love this idea of like these, fucking shit, like human-esque looking forms occupying these top bunks looking down on you, but they have like these pig snouts or like animal-like features, you know what I mean? Because they're fucking savages.
So this is a literal explanation of what went on in the archipelagos, however you pronounce it. There were people, there were criminals, there were thieves, there were people who conducted themselves in this manner.
Yeah, that was part of this. I think there was, to a level, a caste system. You know what I mean? Because if you were a political prisoner, there was no redemption for you. You could be treated like however the fuck, and like thieves could have like a rough time too, but a lot of times they worked out. They just plundered all the, because you got to think when you mix like Sing Sing with a concentration camp, what that means is like you have like sweet old ladies and just like people like me who aren't like by any means on steroids hanging out and being in a cell with a bunch of huge fucking thugs and like gangsters and shit, you know what I mean? So guess who ends up in charge in that situation?
Yep.
And they get free reign to do it. And every now, like Solzhenitsyn describes, like there's a few exceptional cases where maybe some officers from the army ended up in a cell and they stood up to the thieves, or whatever, but vast majority of the time they just terrorized and took control, and they, as Solzhenitsyn would say a lot, just stole your shit and lost it in a game of cards.
Okay.
So
there was no structure per se, like military or police structure that involved consequences, rewards, and punishments.
Oh, there's plenty of that, but the thieves have more freedom. They're just treated differently, and also, like, when you're in these, it's hard for me to explain because the thing is, there's no like standard. universal gulag experience. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of variety, and you have a lot of remote areas where, you know, anything was happening from Cannibal Island to, like, I remember this story about this one guy who basically, I mean, maybe you could cynically say it was just to keep his own job and keep the, higher ups from executing him, but it was also to, like, support his people and all, because he had to run this camp. And for, like, the petty tyrant, that's easy, but for, like, a fucking normal person, that's, like, kind of nerve wracking.
Yeah.
So he came up with this scheme because he was running, like, this lumber operation where he just put these fake numbers, and he would say, "Oh, sorry, chief, the bugs got the, or they fell into the river, or we, like," there was always some excuse for why they had to get rid of, like, all these millions metric tons of, like, non-existent lumber, and they kept this scheme up for, like, like a while at least, and they might have gotten away with it even. I can't remember, but you know what I mean. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of different things going on, and I was, in the little time I spent on it, it was really struggle. It's very easy because the heart, there's a good side and an evil side, and it's very easy to think of imagery for the evil side. For the good and how to represent that, that's really tough. And honestly, given the fact that it's gulag, it'll probably just be images mostly of suffering and kind of like the slaves breaking their backs, trying to, like, lift the stones and shit,
This description, the imagery you're using of a heart, it's a good heart and a bad heart. Is that something you constructed in your own mind?
No, there's a very specific quote from Solzhenitsyn where he says the line of good and evil runs directly through the hearts of all men.
Okay.
So that's where that idea comes from.
That ties into a lot of some of what we talked about last time in terms of heart math, the heart math meditations and stuff, and the beliefs, Eastern religious beliefs that the heart is, the central part of your system, not the brain. That everything filters through the heart, feelings, thoughts,
I mean,
actions.
sometimes I don't know if it's a real thing, but I've I've heard of, like, a rare case here and there where someone literally died of, like, a broken heart, basically. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Well,
But
that massacre, when the guy died after hearing the news about his wife dying, that was a broken heart, basically.
yeah,
The broken heart syndrome.
mm, yeah, man, some fuckery. But so yeah, that's what
I
that.
saw you the story about the anecdote about the two elderly men who lived next to me when I was an urban pioneer in Dorchester.
I don't think so.
By
Go.
urban pioneer means I was living in a gentrified neighborhood that was in the process of either being gentrified, going one way or the other. So there were people, the politically active people like myself, who believed in doing it for a good reason. Then there were those on the other side who were just abusing it, and then there were just the greatest proportion of people. There were still thieves and creeps and belonged to gangs and stuff. But we all had big single-family Victorian homes,
Mm-hmm.
and next to me were two brothers, two very odd brothers. I don't think they were twins, but they'd spent their whole life as best friend, almost in a husband and wife relationship.
Joints at the hip.
Yeah, joined at the hip, no outside relationships. Once I saw some family visiting, that was it. And maybe you're repeating the story, but one of the brothers died during the night at the hospital from a heart attack or something. And when they told the other brother, he just dropped to the ground dead. And it was weird because I remember it was a little snowstorm was starting, and the police were knocking on my door at like 6:30 in the morning. And in Dorchester, anything could have happened. They could have said, three dead people in your backyard. Can't do anything about it. But basically, the guy said, if you know these people, next door, and I said, not that well, but we kind of watched each other's property, looked out for each other, and said hello, cordials. And then he told me what happened. He said, wow. He said, do you know any relatives or anything like that? And I didn't really know. And I just said he had a sister. They had a sister who visited once in a great while. They eventually tracked her down, but that's exactly what happened. The cop said, Jesus, I never couldn't believe it. He goes, they said the guy died of a broken heart.
Wow. Crazy, man. But I just wanted to say before moving on that thank you for reminding me of that our hard math website. I totally slipped my mind. So I'll take excuse me, little dig into it for next week's session, because I have a very good feeling that this week will not be nearly as stressful as the last week.